By the way, Noah, wait, do you have your little light on for your back panels, the wall panels? Your little light. Gotta have your little light on.
There we
Oh,
go.
there it is. Now this is complete. I think this is our first show where you've got a full set of wall panels.
I had a full set. I think last week I had a full set. Right? And then
Look at
five,
that.
and then in between last week and this week, 5 of the 6 panels fell off the wall.
Oh,
This-
somebody got a Dell XPS ad in front of this stream. That is ironic.
Oh no.
They're paying me now to advertise their competitors. That's essentially what they've done. So 5 of the 6 fell off, you said?
Yeah, so this one managed to stay up for some reason, but the other 5
Nice.
fell off. And so I've now upgraded from 7 pieces of tape per wall panel to 11 pieces of tape per wall panel. So
11
my
pieces of tape. If one of them
last
falls off
stand.
on stream, I feel like we need to have something for that.
I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll have to see.
I feel like we need to have like a party. If one
A
of them
party?
falls off. Yeah, like I feel like we should open up like betting or something. We should just become a casino.
That I feel like if one of them fell down, I would be distraught. I would have like more of a funeral than a party personally.
That's fair. That's fair because it's your hard effort, your hard work. You've been putting them up diligently every week since September 14th.
Yep.
Wasn't that that was the Apple event? That's when you first tried.
Yeah, it's been over a month now. Yeah, yep.
Now that is a bro moment. You know what's not a bro moment though? Look
What's
at this. Look at this, folks.
Oh yes.
It's new MacBook
Pixel
Pro
6.
week, but we got the Pixel 6 Pro here. This phone
Very
is kind of
nice.
nuts. I guess I can't really. What am I not allowed to say? I'm still under embargo, so I'm not as supposed to say a whole lot. But I think I can show it to you. I don't know. What do
I
you guys
think
think?
we've
Does it
seen
look good?
enough.
What do you think?
I
don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat. Do you think it's better looking than an iPhone? Let me show you the front. Oh. We got the hole punch. We got very slim bezels. We also got. Let me unlock it here. You can probably see there. The display is like slightly curved around the edge of the glass. It's pretty cool. We have under display fingerprint reader. Look at that. Very cool. What do you think? What do you guys think? Someone said that it's better than the iPhone. Someone said it's ugly. Someone says that they don't like it. Someone says that they hate the camera bump. Someone says it looks better than an iPhone. Wow. Wow, we have some pretty... nobody's saying they both look good. Everyone's either saying that they love it or hate it.
That's really interesting.
I'm torn. What do you think, Noah?
First of all, you gotta give Google some props for trying to be a little bit different with the camera visor is what I've heard it
I
called.
forgot that's what they call it.
So
Kind of goofy.
it's a little goofy, but you gotta give them credit for having a
Yeah.
different design there. It's worth something.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
I think it's really an interesting... I don't know. I like it. I'm just going to say it. I think it looks great. What do you think?
I like the design. Here's what I like. There's 2 things. First of all, when you put it down on the table, it's not going to wobble like the iPhone does.
Because it's like an easel. It'll stand up evenly.
Yeah, exactly. So that's good. And I also like the like duotone where the top is a little bit of a different color.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not I and obviously you can't pick what color you get. I was looking
Yeah.
at the colors. I feel like the Pixel 6 colors I prefer to the Pro colors,
I agree.
but I don't know, with a more like a brighter like poppier color with that duotone in there. I don't know. I think it looks pretty good.
I will say there's one thing. I know a lot of people. Some people were saying it looks plasticky and it looks cheap. I did not get that impression, and it feels this thing feels expensive. Like if you go into your Best Buy, it feels. I mean, this thing feels solid. Wait, let's do a knock test here, right? So here's the iPhone, and here's a Pixel 6 Pro. All right, they kind of sound the same, but the point is they both sound very solid, very robust. You know, it doesn't flex or bend or like any. This thing, knocked on the screen. Hello. All right, it passed the knuckle test. I don't know. I think it looks fantastic, and the one issue is absolutely every inch of this phone is glossy, and absolutely every inch of it shows fingerprints. I mean, you can probably already see on the back here. I unboxed this literally yesterday, and it is covered in smudges. Other thing, because we have this like sticky out part here with the visor, it is a magnet for dust. Like when you take it in and out of your pocket, all the dust just sits up there.
Yeah, I feel like
was I allowed to say any of that? I don't know.
I have no idea. I feel like they could have maybe rounded out or like smoothed out the visor so that the dust wouldn't get trapped there as much, but I don't know.
Although you could argue that the same happens with the top of the iPhone. Like that always collects a little bit of dust. And between the camera bump, between the three different cameras, you get a lot of dust. So I guess it's not really exclusive to this. The one thing I will say was pretty funny is I don't know if you saw the Geekbench leak, Noah.
No.
It's worse than an A12.
Really?
Yeah. It scored an A12 scores around 2900 with 2100 multi-core, 1200 multi-core. This was about 2700 multi-core. So it's performing worse than a 3-year-old iPhone chip. That is slightly embarrassing.
And this is because it's the Tensor chip, right? That's the new Google SoC. Yeah. Well, you know, they tried. They basically used off-the-shelf cores. It's a good. You know, I'm glad that there's some competition. I just wish that they could compete. But I feel like, I don't know, it's hard to compete against the A-series chip because they've just been... I mean, it's Google's first chip. Apple's been doing it for 11 years. So as first starts go, it's not bad. But to answer this person's question, yes, a 3-year-old iPhone XR that you can get for $300 will perform better than the $900 Pixel 6 Pro. All right. The thing that's fair. I guess the thing that I'll say is the iPhones have always been, I feel like they've always been pretty overpowered for what they are.
I think that started in like 2013, 14. Okay, it really kicked into high gear with the A10 Fusion and then the A11. That like kicked it up a notch.
All right, let me put it this way: not always. Definitely, I didn't mean always, but for a while. So if you're comparing this to the A12, okay, yes, you know the performance is worse. Obviously, we're seeing Geekbench and not real life, but you can imagine the real life will be a bit worse. But if the iPhones are always like, they're always pretty overkill, which is obviously great for like longer support time. But like,
true.
I don't know. I wouldn't write off the Pixel 6 immediately because of
slow.
That. Yeah.
Like I would say that it's an advantage of the iPhone to be as fast as it is after 3 years because it's as fast as a new Android phone, rather than saying an Android phone is as slow as a 3-year-old iPhone.
Right.
If that makes sense. I think that's a worthy distinction to make. But let's be real here. You guys are not here for us to talk about the Pixel 6 Pro and the iPhones. You guys are here for one thing and one thing only. And for that, we need to start the real podcast. Don't you think,
Oh,
Noah?
Yes. Yes, as soon as I get QuickTime open here.
I'm doing the same thing, buddy.
Very good.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, I'm recording.
Welcome to Dark Mode, the podcast that brings you sage advice from two technology experts. And that's not just what we call ourselves, it's what our moms call us when their friends call us to ask whether they should buy the new MacBook Pro. I'm your host, Luke Miani.
And I'm your host, Noah Rubin. On this show, we take questions from listeners, attempt to answer them to varying degrees of success, and maybe even have a laugh or two along the way.
And today's laugh quota, I think we can maybe even replace it with excitement quota.
I think so. Lots of excitement.
I have not been this excited in a long, long time.
I can tell.
I can't believe, dude, it's been a week since we did this podcast. It feels like it's been an eternity.
Really?
Yes. Oh my gosh. This week has been a month for me. I'm so freaking excited for these things and for the content that I'm going to bring to you guys that I mean, I've been having okay, I'm probably going to there's people that are going to make fun of me for this, okay? But I've been having dreams about MacBook Pro launch day and like what I'm gonna do on launch day. Have you had those, Noah? This is really embarrassing for us, but you know what? We're being brave by admitting to the fact that we've been having dreams about this.
Yeah, because I texted you this morning, or I guess it was this afternoon or whatever. But yeah, last night there was some MacBook Pro in my dream last night, and I remember that part of it.
Snuck its way in there.
Yeah, it did.
I've been alternating. I had a couple of dreams that were like good, or I don't even know, dude. It was so weird. Like I had a dream like 2 days ago that and it was basically just like MacBook launch day, and everything just went as I would expect it. Like I woke up, I got a MacBook, I started filming a video, I edited the video. It was like just a normal what I would be expecting. But I have also had a few like everything goes wrong dreams where like they all got shipped somewhere else, or like my camera caught fire or something. Like I had a couple of those.
Truly nightmares.
Now, actually, here's the thing that's interesting. Well, first of all, people are asking when the embargo lifts. So from what I'm understanding, this person is correct. 9 a.m. EST. I think it might be a little later than that, but yeah, tomorrow morning on the East Coast, or tomorrow very morning on the West Coast. That's when we're supposed to see the initial reviews. Now, I don't expect those to be super duper thorough, because I don't want to say anything that's like negative to the content creators, but Apple chooses people who don't do the performance benchmarks. Apple's very particular about who they send their products to, and I watch every single one of them. Every single one of the people that Apple sends products to, I watch them all the time. But I feel like the initial round, given the amount of time that people have had these things and the type of audiences that they cater to, I don't think we're going to be seeing comprehensive benchmark results tomorrow. And so that's why I'm optimistic about this particular launch. Because in the past, I don't know, as a YouTuber who Apple would rather was like dead in a ditch somewhere probably, I don't get anything. I've never been the most acknowledgement that I've ever received from Apple is from retail employees that recognize me. They don't, in any sort of a corporate way, that I don't exist to them. But that's okay. I don't need Apple. Well, okay, I guess objectively I do. It's my job, but I don't need them officially to help me. I can do it on my own. So I don't know. I'm optimistic that given that there's only a 1 day advance on these reviews, and that I think I don't know. I think that my content is going to be somewhat more in depth than a lot of content just because I bought 5 of the dang things. Oh, we got Greg here. Greg is also on Apple's I wish this guy would not exist anymore list. So there you have it. Greg and I are going to be working our little butts off on these things on Tuesday.
Yeah, I feel like Apple definitely knows you, but not in a good way, let's just say.
Oh no, they do know me. I've been told by a couple of like leakers that the app, like, I don't know, they've apparently they didn't like when I bought the base model iMac.
Oh yeah,
before the
M1. Yeah. Right.
Apparently they didn't like that. And they they thought that was not a good bit of content. I think they just didn't like that I was drawing attention to it. Now, as someone pointed out here, Linus did spend $25,000. Yeah, I can't compete with Linus, but I never was going to. You know, I'm not trying to outdo Linus. There's room in the YouTube space for multiple angles. In fact, I think if you're watching this now and I'm the only content you're planning on watching about these MacBooks, you're probably going to miss some stuff because the whole beauty of YouTube is that you can get a ton of different opinions. And so that's what I'm banking on, to hope that that what I say is valuable, but there's always going to be more stuff. Now, personally, I've got a humongous list of benchmark things that I've been working for about a week now, Noah, running the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you want to go through them? I'll go through everything that I've got planned out to test.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
So, I mean, first of all, we got to do Cinebench R23. I think that one is probably the best multi-core, like, raw performance test, and it gives you a really good idea of where things place. So that's a big one. Then, of course, we got the usual. We got Geekbench single core, Geekbench multi-core, Geekbench compute, which... so far, have you seen, Noah, the leaked Geekbench compute scores?
I did see that article. I looked at it. I don't remember all the specifics, but I did hear about the leaked Geekbench, and I looked a little bit. Yeah.
You know what? We'll come back to what I'm going to test for. I feel like we need to look at these a little bit here on stream because, I mean, it's interesting. There's a bit of, I don't know. I think people are perhaps rightfully throwing a bit of water on Apple's claims. And part of what I want to talk about tonight is actually kind of pouring a little bit of water on the hype before we get these things. Because I do have some reservations about this new MacBook Pro. It's MacBook Pro 18,2 and 18,3, I believe. What are the... Geekbench is really particular about syntax when you're typing. Maybe it's... There it is. Okay. So here are the Metal and OpenCL scores for the M1 Max, if you're watching along live. So up here at the top here, we've got, 68,000, 67,000, 69,000, nice. 67, nice. 67. And that's for Metal. And then the OpenCL is much lower. So here's one that's at 51,000. That's low. 58, 62. A couple other ones are further down here at 58, 60. So we're beyond the point of margin of error. And if we go into the OpenCL ones, because I know people are going to say, oh, well, that's probably the 24-core one. It's not. Look at that. 32 core, 32 compute units is what's listed, and we have an OpenCL of 58,428. And that's a lot of people have been perhaps rightfully concerned by that. Because if we look up like 3080, a 3080 mobile, I mean, look at these things. These are all well over 100,000. Now, granted, some of these, the ones over 200,000, those are desktop 3080s. But if we look up like even a 2060, a 2060 scores. We're basically on par with a laptop 2060 in terms of OpenCL score, and people are like, "Well, that's not what Apple promised. A laptop 2060 is not the same as a laptop 3080." I don't know. Have you seen this,
True.
Noah?
I haven't seen. I saw the numbers were leaked, but I didn't see all the context.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I think this test is not telling the complete picture. So a lot of people were saying, "Oh my gosh, Apple lied. Oh my gosh, Apple was lying." I don't believe that to be the case. So and then another thing that people are saying is, "Oh, well, this is you probably need high power mode." Right? Here's none of those are using high power mode yet though. Well, we don't know that. There is no way for us to know whether or not they are officially using high power mode or not. We also don't know what high power mode does. We don't know if it allows faster performance or if it's more oriented towards sustained performance, right? That's a big thing. So I would not say, oh, these numbers are too low. I think these are real numbers, and they are lower than what we had expected. But I don't think, I mean, first of all, OpenCL is deprecated on the Mac, as we know, right, Noah?
Yeah, I think. Well, I know OpenGL is. I'm not sure, but OpenCL is the open source standard. So like Metal is obviously going to perform better because it can take better advantage of the hardware, especially now that it's Apple made hardware. So yeah, so the Metal is definitely going to be better.
So the Metal scores. I mean, let's compare it to the 5600M. Let's look up Radeon Pro 5600M. So you can see we are pretty handily beating out the 5600M. If you look at Metal, that's at like 42, 44, 43,000. The 5500M, which is what I have, is even lower. That's 30,000, 35,000. So that is significantly more powerful, clearly. But we were told 4x, essentially. And that's what's interesting to me, right? Apple said 4 times faster than, the high-end 16-inch MacBook Pros. And 4 times faster than, 3040K would put it in the realm of 3080 mobile, squarely. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing more like 2 times faster at best in this particular test. But that's because I don't personally think Geekbench Compute is the test to be looking at. What I've been much more intrigued by are the M1 Max GFX Bench scores. Let me see if I can find those real quick here, because these results were really, really interesting. But of course, it's not loading. Thank you, Xfinity. I love Xfinity. It's so great. I'll pull that up. But let me know what you think, Noah. In terms of this performance, from a programming perspective, is there any reason that you could think of why it might be so low in this one particular test?
I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know a ton about the test itself, but like I guess my thought would be, if they're saying 4 times improvement, obviously a question is 4 times better at what, right? Because there's different things that a graphics card can do. It can render games. You could do, I'm sure it's involved with like video, like Final Cut related stuff. Maybe it's used a lot in like AI or like neural networks. Like when you're training neural networks, it happens on a GPU very frequently. Now, obviously, there's a neural engine in the processor that would probably take care of that. But like, there's different things that you can do with a GPU. So the question is basically, what is it 4 times better at? And maybe it's not whatever the compute test is testing for, it's for something else. Like, do you know how much the GPU is involved in like Final Cut, for example?
Heavily. The GPU, that's one of the things that I'm going to test for, because I've got all the different versions of the GPU across what I ordered, because Final Cut Pro does take advantage of the GPU, and it's going to be really easy to isolate how much of an effect that makes when the CPU is the same.
Right. And that's so like Apple's talked, Apple's big in that kind of stuff. They talked a lot about Final Cut in the presentation, and they talked about how, all the multiple streams of, 8K video or 4K or, all the stuff they were talking about. So maybe, I'd imagine if you compare Final Cut, maybe you'd get a better idea there, because I guess, first of all, Apple's, maybe that's something that they're targeting, but, that's sort of, maybe that's a somewhat different area where maybe you get the 4 times performance there. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, personally, I expect that Apple's claims are not going to be an exaggeration, because it looks really bad if they're, because a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it's going to be 4 times better in one particular test. Well, when you look back at the M1 and people question their claims, they largely held up. Maybe they weren't exactly 2x, but it was impressive enough that nobody was like, wow, they were making up numbers. So I don't expect that that's the case here, because that would be a fool's errand. Why say 4x when it's, 2x, and we would just be as impressed if you said 2x and then it was true. That's the kind of stuff that companies a lot less successful than Apple have to pull. So I don't expect that to be the case. And I did, by the way, find the GFX bench stuff. Oh, look at that. We got a nice pop-up here. No thanks. So here, this is the one that was interesting. Now, granted, this is a test that isn't the most, apples to apples, because obviously on the Mac we're running in Metal, and we're running on OpenGL in Windows. So they're not the most comparable, I guess, but realistically, if it's performing the same task, I guess you could argue it doesn't matter how it's doing it. If it's faster, it's faster. So take a look at this. Aztec Ruins high tier, 194 FPS, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080 Mobile, 217 FPS. Radeon RX 6800M, 242 FPS. So that is an M1 Max getting within spitting distance of RTX 3080 Mobile. And that is nothing. That's no small feat.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of the other ones where the M1 Max is beating it as well.
Yeah, and so to be clear, my 16-inch with the 5500M scored 94. That's a huge gain. That's twice as fast. Granted, it's not 4 times as fast, which I'm now realizing is what they claimed. I don't know. It's interesting, because I don't know. I feel like 4 times faster than a 5600M. A 5600M is a decent chip. 4 times faster than that would be better than an RTX 3080 Mobile, and they didn't make that claim. So, but this is showing, like, pretty much right up against what their claim was. They were saying like 85% of a 3080 Mobile. That's about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting to compare to the M1 as well, because that might be a little closer of a comparison. If you're comparing OpenGL, if you were comparing like Metal on the M1 to like Vulkan or something on Windows, that would be a different story. When you're dealing with OpenGL, it's probably not going to be as good performance. But like, if you look at the M1 Max versus the M1, there's some, obviously pretty big performance improvements there. I'm like, I used the M1 that you lent me for a little while, and I was very impressed by it. And if the M1 Max is that much better, like
2.5x,
I mean, I think I'm happy. I think I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I am also curious to see. I mean, I think it would be more interesting if we had Vulkan numbers instead of OpenGL numbers. But and it is also interesting that there's variation here. I mean, if you look at Manhattan 3.1, right, then the M1 Max is actually beating the 3080 mobile, 816 FPS versus 580. And then there's, in normal Manhattan, 1187 for the M1 Max, 632 for the 3080 mobile. But then T-Rex, 1400 for the Max, 1900 for the 3080 mobile. So it is a little bit interesting. The fact that there's so much variation, I think, means we have to have some skepticism when comparing to a 3080 mobile. But one thing that is absolutely valid is comparing these results to other Mac results. So when we're getting Aztec Ruins high tier 194 FPS and you're comparing that to 94, which is what I got on my 16-inch, that's absolutely comparable, and that's a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I mean, I'm curious to see, what areas, like obviously Apple isn't very big into gaming, or at least AAA, like, Apple is Apple Arcade, whatever. Those are basically mobile games that can run on a desktop computer. Not to say that they're bad games by any means, but they're not AAA games, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I don't know what the gaming, I don't think I'm going to do much gaming on that Mac, especially since you're not going to run x86 Windows, which is, where most of my games are. But like, I don't know, there's definitely, there's going to be some areas where the GPU is going to be really good, and there's some areas where it's not going to be especially amazing, but it's still going to be way better than what I have right now. So, I'm
you
still
have
looking forward to it.
560X.
Yes.
Yeah, the M1 is already faster than the 560X, and the M1 Max looks to be 2 to 3 times faster than the M1. So yeah, you are going to have a huge difference. That's going to be absolutely massive. Now, in terms of macOS gaming, and I do want to get to the physical design because there's been a number of things that I saw in chat here that I want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Notch thickness, ports, etc. But in terms of gaming, here's the thing. I mean, I have Steam on my M1 Mac, and you'd be surprised how many games are actually, able to run here. So I'm showing only games that can run on Mac OS. There's a decent amount. And the thing that I think is most interesting is even the ones that run in Rosetta, I think what's so cool about the M1 Max and the M1 Pro, which also is showing very promising score results. And by the way, it doesn't seem like the M1 Max is twice the M1 Pro because it doesn't scale perfectly. So the M1 Pro, I think, is still going to be a really solid GPU, and I can't wait to test it. But the thing that is interesting about both of those GPUs being so powerful is that if you do want to do some casual gaming in your Steam library with games that are supported, I suspect that even with Rosetta, you're going to shrug it off and you're going to be pulling great frame rates. Like in my Steam library, I have a bunch of, there's Ark, which is a survival game, Arma 3, Cities Skylines. That I think is going to be that's going to run super well. Counter-Strike, Euro Truck Simulator 2, Hitman is a great game. That one already runs pretty well in the M1. I think it'll be really, really well. Tomb Raider, all the Tomb Raider games are Mac compatible. Civilization 5 and 6. War Thunder. There's a number of other smaller indie games in here. There's a decent library that you can find for Mac OS. And I don't even think you're going to have to worry about Rosetta 2. I think the performance is going to be stellar.
Yeah, I think there's a decent library because I recently installed Steam on my Mac because I used to do everything in Boot Camp, but Boot Camp randomly stopped working for me. It just blue screens every time I try to boot into it. So I had to install Steam. Let me just say this. First of all, I play with a controller. I don't I strongly prefer a controller to a mouse and keyboard, and I have a Steam controller and I have an Xbox One controller. And so I use the Xbox One controller over Bluetooth. It was a nightmare to get that thing to work with Steam, because pairing it to the computer is easy because Apple added good built-in support for that fairly recently.
That's true.
But to get the Steam, like the Steam has this like Steam input driver, and it was this whole, I had to boot into recovery mode and run like a special command because it tries to install this driver for Steam input, and then for some reason the driver is like not trusted. And then normally you go to system preferences and you say, allow this, you go to system preferences, you go to security and you say, allow this to run. But for this particular one, it doesn't show up there. So you have to boot into recovery mode and write a command to allow it. And then you have to like reset all of the warnings. You have to boot back into macOS, reapprove every single extension that you have, and then it'll work. It was a nightmare to get it to work.
Oh,
and I don't even know if it works. I don't know if it even works on M1 or not, but that was a nightmare, and it's not a problem in Windows, obviously. And then there are some games that I've tried to play that either aren't compatible or they're 32-bit, and you can't run 32-bit games. Like I was trying to play the Stanley Parable the other night to show my roommate because I thought that they would find it interesting.
That's a very easy to run game, by the way.
Yeah, but it's 32-bit, so it won't run on the Mac. So I couldn't do it.
By the way, we got Cold Weathers here pointing out that your background is done with some choice emojis.
Oh, yes. I feel the same.
Finally. Hopefully it'll continue to be done. And someone just brought up here, well, I won't read it, but they mentioned ProMotion.
Oh, jeez.
And I keep remembering that it has ProMotion, and I get so excited. Oh my God. I mean, obviously the performance, I think, is what most people are itching to find out about. And that's what I'm going to do a lot of coverage on.
Yeah.
I as I've mentioned, I bought 5 of these MacBook Pros. Well, technically I bought 4, and I'm going to pick another one up on launch day if everything goes well. For whatever reason, Apple is not having, you can't schedule in-store pickup. I don't know why. I've been checking multiple times a day. In fact, I'm checking currently right now. For the 16-inch Apple Store pickup is currently unavailable. Yeah. So I've talked to some people like in Twitter DMs that work in retail, and they say that they're getting stock in. So there will be MacBooks on launch day, but it seems like we can't order them ahead of time. So I'm a little nervous about that because it's a gamble. And then shipping is obviously a gamble because if it comes at 3 p.m., I'm going to like blow my brains out. Like, I don't know what I'm going to, not even in terms of like getting a video out late. Like that's secondary to what in the world am I going to do for all that time? I'm going to be sitting there like, you know how when you're waiting for like 20 minutes for a train and it feels like an eternity? What am I going to do if I do that for like 6 hours? I'll go insane. I will literally go insane. So I'm really hoping that's fair. I'm really hoping that I can pick these things up on one of them up on launch day, and then I've got 3 that should deliver on launch day, and then the 5th one should be in next week because I missed the window on that one slightly. But that's okay. I think I'll be okay with 4 for the first week. Do you think? Is that enough?
I think you can scrape by. Even if the pickup doesn't work out and you have 3, I think you'll be able to scrape by with that.
Well, see, I'm not super concerned about like I'm not worried about the pickup in terms of like, oh my gosh, I won't have a video to make. It's more about when, because I want to just show up right at when the Apple Store opens, just walk right on in there and snag one and just start making videos, and then I don't have to wait on FedEx or UPS or my building, because sometimes I get packages delivered and it says that it's delivered, but they're like, oh, we don't have it yet. And then it shows up like the next day. And I'm like, how is that possible? And they're always like, oh yeah, sometimes it says delivered, but it actually isn't. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. That is absolutely not how it works. If on USPS, FedEx, and UPS, it says delivered for all of those different types of packages, then by gosh, it was delivered. And I don't know what you're doing with it, but give it to me. Yeah. Right? Isn't that weird? What's up with that?
It's truly a mystery, truly a black box.
I just don't get it. Like, and I went down today. I had a package that was delivered yesterday at 10:47 a.m. and it says signed for by front desk. I go down there today at 6 p.m. They're like, "Oh no, it wasn't delivered yet." I'm like hell it was. I know that it was. What do you like? So that's what I'm panicked about. I'm panicked that they're all going to come in. I'm panicked that I'm going to show up at the Apple store. There's going to be a huge line, and they're not going to have the one that I need to pick up or any at all. And then I'm going to come back here sad and depressed at 9 in the morning, and I'm going to sit around bored checking tracking numbers, and then I'm going to see that they're delivered, run down like a little boy on Christmas to the front desk, only to have the person say, "No, sorry, they're not here." And then I'm going to miss launch day. That is my biggest fear.
I mean, I could see it happening, but I really hope it doesn't.
I'm gonna be so panicked.
You already are pretty panicked.
Yeah, I literally am. Has yours shipped, by the way?
Let's see. I know I got charged for it. I saw that. You know when you get charged for it. I'll tell you that much. But let me see if if it's shipped yet.
Let me actually check. I know I was charged for the 16-inch a while ago, but I want to check if I was charged for the other ones. Bruh, what?
Mine still says preparing to ship, but it does say it's arriving on Tuesday, so I don't know.
I don't think I've been charged. That's concerning. Okay, I mean, one of them... All right, I've been charged for 2. I haven't been charged for 2, and then there's another one that I'm trying to get launch day, but that is interesting. So I was charged for the 16-inch, and I was charged for one that I ordered through Best Buy because I decided that I needed to get a third 14-inch, and then I was and that one I was able to get, even though I just got that like 2 days ago. I believe, this is a pro tip, I believe Best Buy is still shipping on launch day for a lot of the configurations, yeah. Which is very interesting. If you're afraid, if you don't have stock, or at this point, more realistically, if you want to wait for the early reviews and then buy, they are shipping sooner than Apple is. So those, that got charged. But the I have a base model 14-inch that is coming on Tuesday, and that one has not been charged from Apple. So I don't know what's going on there. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little concerned about that because it still says, I mean, it's just the same as yours though, right? It says preparing for shipment.
Yeah, I mean, mine, I did get charged for this one, but it does say preparing to ship still.
Skepticism increases. I'm frightened. Okay, let's stop panicking for a quick moment here.
Yes.
And I do want to talk about specifically the design, because I've noticed a couple of things and I want to address them. Somebody was talking about, oh my gosh, the notch, it's an intrusion on the display. No, it's not. It's not an intrusion. The way that Apple phrased it was very clear. They said, we extended the screen up and around the camera. Don't think of it as, oh, they took a chunk out of my display. Think of it as they gave extra display around it. I know that sounds semantic, but it is 0.2 of an inch. You know, the display is 16.2 inches. It's a larger display. And basically they just moved the menu bar up into the bezel and then deleted most of the bezel. So you're getting more space. I think it's fine. I think people are way too complainy about it.
Yeah, I think, first of all, the display, if you take the diagonal of the display, like including, you know, all the way in the corner, you know, where the notch is, whatever, all the way diagonal, is it taller than it was before?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is, right?
It's 14 by 9 instead of 16 by 10. And when you subtract the menu bar, aka the notch area, then it's 16 by 10, same as before. I don't know. I think net positive. And also, when you go into full screen mode, it just blacks out the top. No harm done.
Yeah, I really don't see, like, I get people saying like, "Oh, it looks kind of ugly" or whatever, but like it gives you like when you're not in full screen mode, it gives you a little bit more space because if they're moving the menu bar up into there, then it's, you know, not in your 16 by 9 area. So it gives you a little more space. It makes the bezels smaller. And like I said, when you go into full screen mode, by default, it'll black it out. Now, apps can override that and say that they want to take advantage of the full screen, and then they could stick, you know, other things up in the corner if they want to. But by default, it will just black it out, and it'll look like there's no screen there, basically, because it'll be blacked out. It's mini LED, you know, super black, whatever. So it'll look like there's no screen there. I really don't. I get people saying that maybe people will say that it looks ugly to have like the cutout in the screen. That's a discussion that you can have, but as far as whether it's going to actually make a difference in your use, I don't see how it would make a difference. I think it'll just make the bezel smaller. It'll give you a little extra room. I think it's a good thing. That's what I think.
The other thing that I think is a good thing is people keep saying, "Oh, it looks thick. It looks so thick." It's not. I'm sorry, but it's an optical illusion. And you could argue, I guess you could say that maybe what you're really saying is you don't like the design as much, perhaps, but it's not. It's not. So first of all, the 14-inch is actually thinner than the M1 MacBook Pro, straight up, very slightly, but you know this is not a thick device. Nobody is saying that this is a thick boy. But everyone's saying, "Ooh, the new one's a thick boy." It's all because they got rid of the taper and they brought the thickness out to the edges. That's the only reason it appears larger. In terms of the 16-inch, I'm trying to pull this up here. So the new 16-inch is 0.66 of an inch. The old 16-inch is 0.64 of an inch. It's 0.06 of a centimeter thicker. That's nothing. That's nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. And there's a comment here saying, you know, it looks chunky for some reason. And I that was my initial reaction when I looked at it. I think it's maybe the feet. It's a combination of the feet and the design that it's like, I guess it's kind of rounded at the bottom, but it's like flat up the. There's just something about the way that it looks that I thought it was going to be a lot thicker. So I was surprised to hear that it was as thin as it is, and that's why I'm so curious to see it in person. I want to see the notch. I want to see the thickness. I want to see the ports. I'm just so curious to see this in person. I really am.
Well, let's get a little bit of a taste of this now. I don't know if you've seen this, Noah, but somebody in Vietnam got their hands on it on the 16-inch. I've not watched this in full. I think we should go through it right now, don't you think?
All right, let's take a look at it.
So, well, I mean, first impression here on the top, I'm super digging the new top look, like the flatness and then that subtle rounding on the edge of the screen. I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, I still wish that they had different color options, but that obviously didn't pan out.
Is it just me or is the Apple logo bigger?
When they were doing the keynote, I thought it did look bigger, so it very well may be.
Because here, like that, so this is the 16-inch, and that looks proportionately, you know, for the logo looks proportionately like the smaller one, but look at my 16-inch.
I do think it's bigger.
I think it's bigger. I like that. I like that. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, I mean, I can see how it looks a little chunky from the side. Let's see if we can get a side profile angle on it. I have to say, from this like top 3/4 view, I think it looks really good. Because remember, the rounded corner is the radius of the round is bigger on the bottom. There, we can see it pretty well there. Oh. Dude, I don't know. I think it looks so good.
it really looks like that 2008, like the old MacBook. I don't. It's just every time I look at this, that's just
it's
the
retro.
first thing that comes into my head.
I like it though. Are you saying that as a bad thing, that it looks a little bit throwback to the original MacBook Pro, or is that like a good thing?
I'm not saying it is a bad thing necessarily. I think it looks like, just looking at this angle, it's like the top is flat and the side is flat, and then it kind of, curves off at the bottom. I think it looks pretty good, to be honest.
Let's keep it going here. And I don't think it looks very thick. I feel like the fact that it's super flat on the top and bottom are going to make it feel really nice. And look at it compared to this person's finger. Like, it's pretty. It really is small.
That's true, yeah.
I think the display panel is a little thicker. One thing I will say is the fact that the whole device is more rounded on the outside does mean that you won't have the same issue that the old generation has had with its like sharp corners, and that is that they chip pretty easily. Like, you go on eBay and you look at used MacBooks from this generation, and they all show up with like chipped corners, and you can see them like shining a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's almost impossible not to have chips in the corners. I mean, I don't, but that's because I'm like OCD about my laptops and I take really, really good care of them. But I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue here because you don't have those sharp corners. Like, here, look, on the other MacBook that he's comparing it to, do you see the corners? See how they're all, or I guess really the edges? Do you see? You can see the variation where there's like scuffs and scratches. And that I think is not going to be an issue anymore, which is really good.
It did look a lot taller. The new one definitely looked taller.
If I'm not mistaken,
deeper.
Is he comparing that to? So a lot of people have been showing it next to the 15-inch, and the 15-inch of the last generation is a lot thinner than the 16-inch. In fact,
interesting.
I do believe is that a 15? I think it is. I think it is a 15. Because the 15-inch from like 2016, 17, 18, 19 is noticeably thinner. But it's all in the taper. Okay, wait, let me see. Yeah, no, he's comparing it to a 15-inch. See, look at the display, look at the touch bar and the escape key. So that's why it looks so much thicker.
I see.
Although
that's what I'm going to.
From.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like the black keyboard well. At first I was confused about it, but now I think I dig it.
I think it's pretty interesting.
It's certainly different, and I applaud them for spicing it up, because I feel like it would have been pretty easy, without that, for these designs to look very similar.
Right.
Oh man, it's the screen increase from 15 to 16.2 inches is sizable. I think you're gonna really notice it.
Ooh, the liquid Retina XDR.
Yes.
We love that.
Wow, look at the difference in the screen size. The 15-inch almost looks like a different like size category.
Yeah, it's because like I have a 16-inch as my work laptop and a 15-inch as my personal laptop, and I definitely notice a difference going between. Like, it doesn't sound like 15 to 16 doesn't sound like a big difference, but like I definitely notice it when I go between those laptops.
Yeah, and you're going from 15.4 to 16.0. That's 0.6 of an inch. But you notice it. You really do.
Yeah.
And I think that on the 13-inch, going from 13.3 to 14.2, that's almost a full inch. That's a big difference. I think people are really going to notice it on the 14.
That's true.
So I guess that's kind of our first look here into the difference in those MacBooks. I don't know. I, for one, am off the walls excited for this thing. But I guess now's the part where I think we should roll back the hype train a little bit, park it at the station for a brief moment here.
Okay.
Because there was something that occurred to me today, Noah.
What's that?
And that was, if you take a look here at the M1 products, these are really, really interesting because their price point and their thermal envelope and their performance is excellent. You look at a MacBook Air right now, right? You're paying $1,000. You can get a MacBook Air refurbished from Apple for $850. That is a killer deal. Because if you go to the Windows side, you cannot find a laptop that is more powerful and as portable and as good battery life. It does not exist. And that is one of the reasons why the M1 devices have been unbelievably popular. Is because unlike in the past where you bought the Apple products because of the ecosystem and the integration and the software and the hardware, like physically design-wise, now you can buy it for all of those same reasons, plus the fact that it's faster than the competition. That's
true.
Really killer. But the problem is, I don't know that you can extend that argument to the M1 Pro and Max. So here's the issue. Let's say Apple is correct. Let's say they've designed a 30-watt CPU that can smoke the likes of the most powerful AMD and Intel processors right now. So a 5900HX and Core i9 11900HK. I don't know if those names are correct, but they're both a mess, so I don't care if they're correct or wrong. Let's say they can smoke them, right? Great, fantastic. But you can get Windows laptops with those CPUs for a similar price point. And let's say that the M1 Pro GPU, the 16-core, can, take on a 3050 Ti, maybe even a 3060. And then the M1 Max can take on like a 3070 mobile or a 3080, like cut down the 100-watt version. And let's say all of those things are true, that they are able to do that. That will be very, very impressive. You're talking about a 30-watt CPU that's competing with 60-watt CPUs. Awesome. You're talking about an integrated 60-watt graphics card competing with a 100-watt graphics card. Heck yeah. Fantastic. But the argument that you can't get the same performance for less or the same price will not be true. Because when you look at like the GE76 Raider that Apple compared it to, that is a pretty price competitive product. So I don't know. I've been thinking about this for the last day or so because it's like, okay, yeah, Apple can make a product with a 90-watt system that can compete with 190-watt systems. Great, cool. That's awesome. But if it's the same price and the same performance, is it as compelling?
Yeah, I think one of the thing that I really liked about the M1 machines is that they're so easy to recommend to people. Like my mom got one and that was, it was a no-brainer. Obviously I had her wait for them to come out, but then they came out and I said, get the MacBook Air. You can get the base model one. It's going to be plenty more power than you need. It's going to have great battery life. It's, great, portability, whatever. Those computers, at that price point and being the entry level ones, they're so easy to recommend. I guess for the upper ones, like, here's the thing. For me personally, I'm going to get a Mac, right? I don't really... like, yeah, and I know you're in the same boat. Like, for me personally, I don't really care that you can get a comparable Windows laptop for that price, because I'm just not interested in that. But there are people who are interested, or who would consider either one, and then you go back to the other factors of the ecosystem and the performance and Final Cut and whatever other stuff you want to get into. But for me personally, I don't know. I wasn't going to get an M1 machine because first of all, I want the bigger display, and I was also waiting for some more power, more performance. Do I really need it for most of what I do is, a question you can ask, but still, yeah. I wanted to wait. The new ones are out. I wanted to get a new one, and I ended up getting a pretty high spec one. Because I felt, I don't know, I thought it would be cool to have, and I guess it'll last for a long time, which is great. But I don't know. I guess for me it wasn't ever really a question, but for some people it may be a question. So I do agree with you that the M1 base model, all that, some of that great stuff doesn't necessarily extend all the way up. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and like you said, I don't think it's going to matter all that much. I mean, people are still going to buy these things. People bought the 2016, 17, 18, 19, all those Intel Macs. And those were very poor price competitive wise, right? They were more expensive usually they had, the best of the best in terms of CPUs. Like Apple always has done well with their configurations for the CPUs, especially when they started putting Core i9s in most of the MacBooks. Then it was like, all right, so they went for the top of the range CPU, but they never, ever had good GPUs. Now, it seems like that's finally going to change here. So, right, like you could say, yeah, it's an improvement going from the 5500M in the previous 16-inch was not comparable to RTX graphics at all. So they had the CPU, they had that one. They didn't have GPU parity. Now you could say, oh, they do. Now they have parity on CPU and on GPU, and they're doing it with better battery life and better efficiency and better optimization. And I'm sure some tasks will be absolutely nutty on these things. And that's probably enough for most people. But the tech nerd in me wants Apple to really step it up. And I feel like if they had the exact same chips that were priced lower, they could do that. Like the M1, right? They could. So think about it this way, right? The M1 chip crushes most of Intel's laptop chip line, their G7 series, which are mostly quad or 6 cores. Are there any even 6 cores? I don't know. I don't care. They're terrible. I hate those chips. They're all garbage.
Okay.
So, yeah, there you have it. But if Apple had taken the M1 and said, "Hey, look at that, guys. We got parity with Intel's mid-range. Let's price it at that level." It would have been impressive still, but it wouldn't have been as crazy. But the fact that they put that in a MacBook Air and you're basically buying a 6-core i7 MacBook Air, that's what makes it nuts. So if the M1 Max was less expensive, not $3,000, I feel like it would be more impressive to the average consumer. But I do think and a lot of people are like, oh, the YouTube nerds never do get enough. I got to be clear to you guys. I have a lot of viewers that are not just nerds or, I'm not talking to nobody here. There's a lot of people. I get a lot of emails and DMs. People are like, I'm in a production studio. I'm freelancing. I'm doing the IT department for schools. I've talked to a number of people that are like, hey, I'm building out my company's system and I want to maximize my value. I talked to a guy who this was after M1 already existed, this summer, was saying this sucks, but I'm buying 10 fully spec'd $6,600 16-inch MacBook Pros.
Oh no.
And he was like, I wish that I didn't have to do this, but we need them right now and we need them to be loaded and we got to move quickly. So I'm not. It's not like I'm just talking to everyone who's going to be sitting there using, the Core 2 Duo from 2009. There are people that watch these videos that are legitimately in need of these types of devices. So these aren't for nobody, and this isn't an exclusive thing that only tech YouTubers care about. That being said, I think I suspect that there's going to be a pretty interesting sweet spot in terms of base models. I'm always reviewing base models. That's almost every single Apple product that comes out. I buy the cheapest one because that's what I'm most interested in. Because you take a look at a 16-inch for $24.99, and you take a look at a 16-inch for $6,000. Externally, they have all the same features. They have the same display. They have the same ProMotion, mini LED, all of that great stuff. So, yeah, as great as it would be to get the fully loaded out one, I think what this generation is going to prove is that more than ever before, just buy the base model and put whatever storage you need, and I think you're going to be good to go.
That's an interesting point, because whenever I'm looking at these Macs, I'm usually not looking at the base model. I've always liked the bigger screen, so 15-inch. Obviously this will be my first 16-inch that I own personally, but I always look at the bigger one. But I usually don't look at the lower tier. I usually look at the upper tier. But now I'm and obviously I bought the highest tier one this time. But I am curious.
You're not planning on returning it or anything, right?
No, I'm not. Obviously, I'm going to give it 2 weeks, but I'm not planning on returning it. I think it'll be a good machine. But I am
a long time.
I'm very curious to see what you come up with the base model, because when I was using that M1 MacBook Air that you lent me, and I was doing some benchmarks and doing a little coding on there just to try it out, I kind of forgot that it was like a MacBook Air, because it just whatever I was doing on it, it just did it, and it didn't. The fans didn't really kick up all that much. Or if they did, it was doing something very. Or I guess the MacBook Air doesn't have a fan, but it wasn't. It wasn't throttling or slowing down. Really, it was just doing what I wanted to do, and it was super impressive. So I think the base model now may actually be pretty compelling. So I'm very curious to see what you find with that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because, first of all, it's a great advertisement for stick with the M1 if you don't need the new stuff. The new stuff is great, but a MacBook Air is $1,000 less than the new 14-inch.
True.
To start. So now I wouldn't say that the new 14-inch doesn't give you anything for that. I would argue that going to the new design with more ports and that ProMotion display, the same battery life as the MacBook Air, but much more performance, I would say that's pretty compelling still. But on the same token, MacBook Air still exists. You can get them for $850, and they just kind of work. This summer I used the M1 iMac base model with the 7-core GPU that cut down the binned M1. I used that thing for like probably 5 or 6 videos, and the performance in the timeline was better than my iMac Pro. Obviously, it wasn't as fast for rendering and exporting, so I did go back, but it, in terms of usability, was superb. And I expect these new ones to be ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely very impressive machines, and I'm very excited for Tuesday. And do you know what else I'm very excited for?
I don't yet, because there's one more thing that I'm excited for before you're excited for that. And that is address, first of all, thank you, Orlando, for the super chats. And also another super chat here. What happened with the backlit Touch ID key? That was my stumble there, my leak that seems like it didn't pan out. To recap real quickly, I had 3 leaks. Number 1 was 32 gigabyte of RAM limitation. That one, I've been told that I got partial credit for that one, because I got essentially nobody realized that there were 2 distinct chips, and so I got one of the chips correct. Like the M1 Pro is limited to 32 gigabytes of RAM. So that one was partial credit, kind of. The other leak was UHS 2 SD card reader. That one was spot on. The Verge confirmed it. Spot on.
Yep.
The third one was quite confusing. Backlit Touch ID. That one is confusing because I had really, really strong info on that from multiple people, even down to the fact that it would be 4 LEDs. Like, I had very specific info that was super legit. So I don't know. It seems like it's not backlit. I kind of wish that it was, because I think it looks a little weird in the dark setting to have like a little hole up there in the lighting. But I guess we will find out on Tuesday. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it glows subtly around the edges. We'll find out. But I think probably not.
Yeah.
Now, what were you saying you were excited for?
Oh yeah, I was very excited about ending this podcast episode.
Oh wow, no way. Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too. I feel like this podcast episode has been hosted by me, your host Luke Miani, as well as
me, your other host Noah Rubin.
Oh wow, that's crazy. I'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning when macOS Monterey comes out. I've got a video ready to go, locked and loaded, and I'll be seeing a lot of you guys this week. So take care, stay tuned, and the next time you see us live, we will have these MacBooks in hand, and there's going to be a lot to talk about.
Looking forward to it.
Have a good night.